Shut it down.
I'm not so bad.
We are live now, though.
Is it 7?
Nearly. Yeah.
Now it is.
Okay. Okay, well, it is 7 o'clock, just about. So can I welcome you all to the meeting? There is apologies from Emma, Councillor Cornish, and there is apologies from Brian Wildman, who's away on holiday. And the rest of us, I think, are here. Item 3, are there any declarations of interest? No. Item 4, minutes of the last meeting held on the 5th of October. No, it's not. I'm reading it wrong sheet.
November.
2nd of November.
November, 2nd of November. Yeah. Are there any comments on those minutes?
No.
Okay. All those in favour? Thank you. Public forum.
Chair, you were meant, a member of the public had registered to speak, but they have not arrived yet.
Well, if they arrive shortly, we can always go back to this item then, yeah? So, moving on then to item 6, financial update. Or do we want to go back now to item 5 and then it's done with?
Yeah, you want to live the
Yeah, so going back to item 5, public forum, Lisa.
I just wanted to register to speak this evening just to speak on item 10, I think it is, just the comb bid use of the gazebos. So it was just to formally ask if we could borrow them. Obviously I know it's on the agenda, but I just wanted to come tonight to speak as well. So that was it really, thank you. Oh, I got that right, sorry. I was saying that it was about the gazebos, item 10. I was just using it as ask for it.
So that there is some sort of continuity, do we want to move item 10 to be read now rather than leave it in place for another hour and a half? I would suggest we move it now in front of item 6 and then it's finished with. Are we all okay with that? Yeah. So then if we move on to item 10, which is loan stroke hire of Town Council gazebos to comb bid. Has anyone anything to say?
No, I think it's a good idea because it's obviously there to support the town, the market, the business, the activities, the stuff going on. I think a combination of the town council markets and the bid markets just creates that bit of a buzz throughout the year. And I think anything that the bid can do to help the council and the council can do to help the bid, I think is all part of a good working partnership, and I think is an excellent idea.
Howard?
Can I ask, through you, Chair, what the average cost is to take them out of store, take them, put them up and bring them back, or take them back?
As far as I am aware, it is in the region of £236.
Right, so it's nothing in terms of our budget. So I think I'd like to move then that we do let them. I think. Well, so I'm thinking as I'm saying it as to whether if we let them hire them for £1, I know that sounds silly, but at least then that means there's some paperwork and a audit trail and the like, and we can then put on that the condition is that Unique, I think, check them out for that they assemble them and put the weights on and make sure they are to the standard that we say when we put them up. So I think subject to that, I'll move that. But I think we just do the pack. It just makes it a formal arrangement.
Who would be paying Unique for the installation costs and everything?
Is the installation cost on top of the 236?
No, that is the cost for the event.
I think in the spirit of working together, subject to the conditions that are said, that Unique put them up to our specification, which is the weights and all. I'm happy that it would be one that we pay the 236. We bear the cost of 236. Subject to satisfactory. I don't mean references, but what's the word? Risk assessments, etc. And signing that they will do, X, Y, and Z.
I'll second that. Do you want to call it a peppercorn, not a pound? Or do you want a pound? Other than that, yes, I'll second that. I mean, putting up gazebos, I used to do it in the olden days, and I helped out the bid the other week with those ones that were stored in the bottom of the market, and it's pretty easy to lift them up, stick the weights on the bottom, join them together or whatever, tie some stuff to railings if it's particularly windy. So yeah, I think it's a fine idea, and yep, we should proceed with that, and let's have a good run up to Christmas.
Can I just say a couple of things, Anissa? I don't want to knock the idea because, in principle, I think it's a good idea. But one of the problems from our point of view, and particularly from my point of view, with the gazebos, and maybe it was a mistake when we got them, is the fact that they are branded. And they do have Colne Town Council written on the side. And it was brought to my attention that the last time they were used up there, Unique Clean were asked not to bother putting the weights on. And I must insist that the weights are on for the simple reason, in a lot of senses, this town council gets used as the scapegoat when anything goes wrong, because if there's a high waste problem, in the past people have tried to take the town council to court because they've fallen its street over a pothole, and it's nothing to do with us, and various other things like that. And if something untoward did happen and one did happen to blow over by a freak wind and it had Cone Town Council written on the side of it, we would get the blame for it. So to sort of give ourselves some assurance, we must insist that the weights are on, because it's us that will get the bad publicity from it. And other than that, I don't particularly have a problem. That 236 does include putting the weights on to make sure they're on correctly, doesn't it? Yes. Naomi?
Yeah, that's not a problem at all. There are a couple of things I'd like to clarify, that this is a one-off as it's against the normal procedure of the council, and we're not setting a precedent for anyone else either. And that I need a named person of the bid who will be responsible for it and will be on site from the moment they turn up on site to the moment they leave. Because we did actually have 3 broken at the last one. And that they are weighted from the moment they are up. And that the risk assessment you've provided previously is reviewed beforehand. Other than that.
Are there any more comments, or are you happy we put that to the vote now?
Just one comment, Chair. I've moved that in a hope that we'll get less of the sniping from some people, and you know, that things like hashtag gazebo gate and other things aren't splashed all over social media, I think is the phrase I'm looking for, because, you know, that's not the way that to win friends and influence people, to quote the famous book. I think, you know, this is an attempt on this occasion to build some bridges or build some gazebos even. So, you know, a bit less of the bad mouthing goes a long way.
Yeah.
Also, I'll need to know who is your responsible person for the day. So obviously, like the Christmas event, it wasn't fit. We couldn't do it. So I need to know who will be making that call and at what time.
I can answer all your questions now. So I am your point of contact. I'll be there all day. What was the other thing you asked me?
Who and what time will you be making the call if the weather's, because we are on a storm warning as well?
Yeah, so we are making the call Thursday morning.
You're making the call Thursday morning? Okay.
And you asked me something else. There was who's responsible on the day, who's calling it, and there was one more thing.
No, I think that...
Was there not a second thing?
It was who was going to be there during the day, who would be making the call and when. So
Yeah,
you've answered
yeah.
those.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so can we see those in favour then? Thank you. You can stay if you want, you can go if you want. Now, going back to item 6, financial update. I don't know whether Gina is feeling up to going through this one or not.
Well, given that this is, I can go through the first bit, which is the obviously the transfer back to the current year fund. As you all know, at the beginning of the year, an amount was taken out of the current year as part of the investment strategy to try and invest that. As it's turned out, it took a while to open the Skipton Building Society account, but there is now funds in there. But obviously, as we've got through 3/4 of the year, we now need to transfer that back, which has been done. And so I've given you a breakdown of what's been taken out of which reserves and put back into the current year fund. The reason why it's not the same as it was when it was taken out was because certain earmark reserves would have been wiped out. One being CCTV, the other one being the blues would have been substantially reduced. And as we're planning on using that, I didn't think that was a good idea to do. So they have been taken out of Alkin coats and playgrounds, I think, instead. So has anybody got any questions on that? No? Are there any questions on the normal budget summary? David?
I was looking at the summary page, and obviously with all the actuals and the commitments again. So noting that we're now 8 months through the year, so 67%. There's a number there where, obviously, I know some of them work by seasons, like Christmas lights and things like that, and some things are sort of spring and summer related. But we're sort of nicely heading towards an underspend on some of these, I think. Unless we're going to do lots of spring spending on the Alkin Coats Park and allotments, there's a lot of money still left to go there. What's the latest regarding the Blues 22? I know it's gone into the budget later on, and we can pick about that one there. But are we're going to use this 23,500, or are we going to roll it forward? Is that the plan?
That is part of the 68 that
we've got for next year.
yes.
Yeah, right. Okay, I thought so.
There was a 25, a 23, and whatever the other was.
I think the rest of it was trading
Yes.
activities. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
I would say if we do need to use it this year, we can do. Anything left, we carry forward.
Right. Okay. So I noted that, as I say, that we've got a few budgets there where we're looking to sail underneath. So that bodes well for next year's budget and using that for the future. So other than that, I'm happy really. No other comments really.
Anyone else? No? What do you want to do? Is there anything on C and D, Gina?
Not really that I need to say. Some of it will come into it under item 8 anyway. So
Yeah, we will.
so if no one else has got any issues or comments, then have we got a proposer and a seconder?
Yeah, I'll propose them.
I'll second it. Or are you out seconding it, Howard? Yeah. All those in favour? Thank you. Item 7, interim audit.
Yeah, so we did actually have a physical audit this year for a change, because the last 2 times it's been virtual and we've had to send all the information. But she did come in for a day, and obviously we gave her all the information that she needed. As you can see from the report, she was happy that that everything that's been put in place is being used effectively, procedures being followed, and that the controls are effective.
Just a quick question from me. In that third paragraph, it talks about carrying tests and checks on accounts and internal controls. Were there any particular balances, any particular transaction streams of any kind that they focused on, or was it a sort of general thing?
It's more general. For internal controls, they tend to look at minutes and decisions that have been made, whether policies have been adhered to, that kind of thing. They look at the precept call and whether that was right. She did actually bring up the fact that it was lower than what was originally budgeted, but obviously I explained that was because of the base rate, and that we'd said that we would bear that cost if the base rate was to reduce, which it did, and she was happy with that. Obviously the financy stuff is looking at payments, whether they've been authorised properly, that kind of thing, whether purchase orders have been authorised, firements have been authorised according to financial regulations and standing orders. So that's basically what they look at.
Okay.
She does do a random selection of things. She will come and say, I want to check invoice there, and she's quite thorough in the way we don't get any warning on what she's going to check exactly.
In a way, that preempted my next question, which is, are they due another visit before the year end then? And do we know what they're going to cover then? But obviously we don't. Okay, but are they due another visit? We've got one more visit before a proper audit, external audit, as it were?
We haven't actually. The next one will be the year-end audit.
Right, okay.
Yeah, it will be the last one of the internal audit, then it'll go to the
External.
yeah.
Okay.
So can we note that report? Item 8, 2022/23 budget final draft. This is really something that we have got to send to full council in 2 weeks with a recommendation from us. I think we can only send a recommendation to them subject to the preset not being many miles away from what we're expecting, because we still haven't got that figure, but we will have by the full council, or so I'm told we will. So I think we can discuss it now. We'll have to do, and we can send a recommendation, but there's got to be a proviso that the figures may need to be altered dependent on what that base rate figure is. If it's only a small percentage, it's neither here nor there. But if it takes quite a hit, it would make a substantial difference.
Mm-hmm.
Does the budget assume it's flat, the same base? I guess it probably does it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard it could be the same or slightly above, so that's good news in a way.
But flat, depends what you call flat. Last year we took a hit and lost, I think it was about 6 grand.
It was just over 6,000.
Yeah. And we didn't adjust any figures anywhere with that. We took the hit.
Yeah.
So unless it's gone up slightly this year, the flat this year will be still a hit.
True.
Of 6 grand, unless it's gone up slightly, because we took a hit with it last year.
Yeah.
Any more questions or comments or? Yes.
So I've gone through some of the bits on here. I think we've challenged some of the costs here and there, and I'm hoping that there's always the opportunity potentially to say that if we're looking like we might underspend on some of these accounts, if that's going to carry on in the future, then obviously we can look forward to the fact that we may well underspend in the future on some of these categories. I still think there's opportunities to focus a bit on revenues for things like the Primmick Community Centre, Cone in Bloom, town hall weddings and rentals and all that sort of thing. So there might be, a few thousand there we could get extra. I note as well, of course, in Para 23, we've still got the caveat, of course, that we want to take on potentially there may be opportunities to take on additional assets and services, etc. I'm still kicking Pendle Borough Council's legal department to get those allotments transferred. So I'll push them again and twist the, I won't say twist the knife, I'll just twist things. So I think for prudence across the 3-year time frame, then yes, I think a small increase in the precept is required, and noting the opportunity to raise it for more than the 1.99% that the borough is capped at, then I think something of that order of 3 to 7% is probably the sort of area where we should be heading for. So, yeah, I think it's a good and well put together budget. Well done, Gina. And there's lots of detail in there. So, yeah, I think I support the budget as it stands. So we move those recommendations.
Howard?
Thank you, Chair. I think, as you said, subject to last year's outturn, and so we know what the Pendle's outturn, so we know what the base rate is going to be. We can, we're fortunate that we could, if we wanted, have a no increase this year and just about get away with it. However, the horizon is looking a little bleak. Well, it's looking a little bleak looking out of the window now, but it is probably fairly pretty much on the cards that at some point people in Whitehall are going to notice that district councils and the like have been offloading services and assets to third tier councils, and so at some point the bean counters in Whitehall are going to wise up to that and start capping things. Although when you actually look at what we raise for our precept, the problem we have is that the majority of our houses are in the lower council tax bands. So, you know, the £1 on the council tax doesn't raise us very much money at all. And although things are always based on the D category, we have, as you go out into E, F, G and so on, the numbers of houses we have in that category falls off fairly quickly. And the sooner somebody in Whitehall wakes up to the fact that the current system penalises authorities in the north and authorities that have older housing, unless there happen to be hotspots for yuppies moving in, so the costs go up. We're in a bit of a cleft stick. I think that using the word that chancellors always like to use, that being prudent, we'd be prudent this year, as has just been said, looking at that rate of 3 to 7%. I think we should aim at the bottom end of that, which, turning to his little piece of paper, means that the the cost will be £2 or £3 a year for the D band. If I've looked at the right column, Gina, nod if that's right.
Yeah, I think you have. I haven't been able to print anything off, so I'm going off memory.
£2. Yeah, the difficulty we've got with taking things from Pendle that they may want to give us is that we need to know exactly what they want to give us, exactly what the costs are involved in that. It's all right saying, "Oh, we've got car parks we'd like to give you," but those car parks will come with a tax burden. Now, Pendle, because they're the tax issuing body, if that's they're the ones that send the bill out. They get excused in paying the business rates on that, but we wouldn't. And there are other things that have been floated around. I'm afraid I don't know what happened at the Cone Area Committee, but there was a report going into there that said, "Oh, let's build a super duper skate park. We'll provide the money to build it, but Cone Town Council will pick up the bill here and forevermore." Well, it would have been nice before that went to that committee if this council had been consulted on that, because we don't know what commitment that is. We don't know what commitment if the municipal hall was transferred to us. We don't know what the commitment is on that. We don't really know what any commitment would be connected with the market and all the super plans that are supposedly being drawn up for that. Again, without any consultation from the powers that be. So they mustn't be surprised when something lands in our lap that we look at it a bit sceptically as to what it may cost, because it costs nothing to give us a heads up here and there. But in general, the budget as it is to be commended to the full council and the staff, particularly Gina, who's coughing away there occasionally, is to be thanked, particularly, especially for finishing the workings out of whilst on cue, whilst suffering from the dreaded COVID, because I think that goes a bit above and beyond, because we've got this habit in this country of thinking people should carry on forever and a day if they're not well, and that doesn't do anybody any good. It doesn't do the person that's ill any good, their families any good. I know by now probably all her families got the lurgy, but it certainly doesn't do the employers any good either, because people tend then to be off for longer than they perhaps should have been in the first place. Anyway, enough of that, but I'll second the resolution to full council.
Jonathan?
I just wanted to clarify something with Gina on the one of the attachments, Appendix 4, which is the summary, which gives you how many pence it would cost per week per increase. So I just wanted to check it. So if we were to go for the full 12.73% increase, for example, in a Band A house, that would be 22 pence per week, would it?
Is that what it says on that? So I haven't printed it off.
Well, it just sounds like low, yeah. I just wondered if it were right, that's all.
It is all worked out on, I have checked the figures and they
Yeah.
are correct.
Okay, and how many more years have we got left when we can make these kind of increases? Do we know?
No, we don't. That's the
Right.
problem.
I think financially the town council's in the right good place. It's heading in the right direction, and it can only continue to head in the right direction if it is backed financially. I really can't see why we wouldn't increase it by the full amount at 22p a week. Oh, are we serious here? 22 pence per week? Why are we being a bit daft by not raising it by the full amount?
The thing that we need to keep in mind is that ours is just a small part of the council tax, and along with that, everyone else will also increase theirs. So to the actual taxpayer, it could end up being quite a big hike. It's relevant.
Yeah, but we're delivering different services. We're delivering more sort of like on the ground services that Coners would see more often, I think. I think we can justify in the ratio, in terms of a ratio, I think we can justify a heavier increase than the likes of Pendle or LCC. I just 22p a week, I don't think it's a great deal of money, really, to be honest. I'm wrong in the head. I would like to know what other people think about 22 pence a week increasing in council tax.
Well, one thing you've got to remember is you're supposed to base it on Band D. I know everybody will say there's more A's than anything in Colne in particular, and quite a lot of B's, and as you go up the letters, like Howard says, there's less and less houses in each category. But you're supposed to, when you're talking about it, you're supposed to talk about it in Band D. But that's not helpful to us, it isn't that, because we don't have many property. Most of our properties are lower than that. But on a Band D, and figures are correct because I've just reckoned it up, to go for the 12.73% on a Band D, it would cost you 16 quid a year.
Thanks, David. Yeah, you're totally correct. Band D, yeah, 33p. So 33 pence a week. Would get us extra 80 grand a year. Is that correct? Yeah, right. Come on. 33p? I'm a Band D, actually, as it happens. I'm happy to pay an extra 33p. And I'm sure a lot of people in my position who live in Band D houses probably won't even notice it. Generalising there, it's very dangerous in politics to generalise. Appreciate that, but I'm 33p.
The base rate figure, Jonathan, is, I think it's 4,000, or was from last year. And we're hoping it doesn't go down and it goes up, if anything. I think from memory it was about 4,600 was the base rate. And what the base rate is that is the figure you will get cash in your preset receipt when it goes in the bank for every pound on the preset. So the 4,600 is the preset figure, and that is how much you would get for each pound increase or loss if it were a decrease on the amount they pay, right? So if it went up 16 pounds at 4,600, if you multiply them two figures together, you will find it does come to about 80 grand. So the figure is right.
mean, I think I take Jonathan's point. I mean, as you say, for the majority of households in Cone, they are Band A, and therefore, you know, £11.50 a year for the 80,000. You could say, why stop the table at 80,000? You know, it's only just stopped at 80,000 for a reason, to head towards, well, just an example. You could take it up to 100,000 or 150. And in the past, of course, several years ago, then there were these large double-digit things because there was an anticipation of taking on some assets to be, you know, build the pride and ownership of the town. If there are plans to take on things like the Mooney, and I take Howard's point about, you know, let's find out how much they cost and what we want to try and do with such assets. Car parks, you're right, they are primarily business rates. That's the biggest cost of a car park. If you look at things like the cycle park, skating park thing, it was a surprise to me, actually, based on how that paper was set out. So it was a surprise to Cone Area, that one, but all Cone Area thought it was a jolly good idea, because obviously it wouldn't cost Pendleborough Council very much, would it? So it depends then on the council's attitude to it. And I think winding it in with certain reallocations of bits of car park outside the leisure centre, that might have increased the size of it, changed the size of it, etc. So there are options there, really. But I think with all these things, obviously the vision a few years ago was to say, we will increase the precept by a larger amount because of these plans. And if you sell it to the public to say this is why we're doing it, then you're selling a different agenda from the Pendle one and the Lancashire one and all the emergency services ones as well. So that's the reason why you could do it, how you could do it, and how you justify it when it comes to, you know, this is our budget, this is what we want to spend our money on.
Chair, we're beyond that now. The first year was because nobody knew really what we were going to get. But we've gone beyond the let's just bung a big figure in there and keep increasing it. Because when the bill arrives, it has the little things across it, and it's got the percentages, and people don't look at the actual figure, they look at the percentage. So if they see nearly 13%, they're going to go, why have the council put it up 13% when inflation at its best only, well, it could be 4%, I suppose, dependent on who you believe. The real problem is local government finance is in a mess, and it's in a mess because central government is starving local government of funds, and the only way that they can raise funds is by putting up the council tax. So they start doing that, and at levels above the second and third tier authorities, the government then step in and say, whoa, can't do that. You're putting them up too much. Anyway, I'm not going to start going down that road because the current, well, no, I'm stopping now before I go into it. But I think the point is, when that bill arrives, they don't look at the fact that it's only a tenner from us. They look at it that it's going to be, oh, goodness knows, this next year.
Yeah, I think you're right. But it's been moved and seconded to forward the budget for discussion to full council. Setting the precept isn't something that we can do anyway. I know there's Gina to come in. And I think we've got to have the discussion and the argument, if there's going to be one, about what to set the precept at in a fortnight at full council, because it's them who's got to make the decision. And if by then we will know, hopefully, what the proper figure is, and then we can have a proper constructive discussion about it. So I don't think there's much we can do about the precept today, because as I said, we can't make that decision anyway. So I'll bring Gina in.
Yeah, what I would say is I would be reluctant to increase it any more than what your 3-year budget says you need. I know that we may be taking on extra services in the future. However, we've had no indication of any costs or anything from Pendle. We may not take any on. In my opinion, if they want to get rid of things, it's probably because they're costly to their budget. And that's probably why they want to get rid of them. So it's likely that expenditure will increase quite a bit. And as you get bigger, obviously, your reserves have to be bigger. Your minimum reserve has to be bigger. Your earmark reserves have to be bigger. So we do need to keep all that in mind. And I would suggest, rather than going for the lower end of the figures that I've suggested, I would be more inclined to go middle or more towards the 3/4 mark. But that's just my opinion.
Okay, thanks, Gina. So having said all that, unless anyone else wants specifically to say anything, can we put it to the vote that we pass this forward to full council in a fortnight? Those in favour? Thank you. Item 9. Millennium Green Trust Equipment Storage. Gina again.
Yeah, so this is basically, it's equipment that as far as I'm aware hasn't actually been bought yet. It's equipment that they want to buy with a grant that they've applied for, and the terms of and the conditions of that grant are that the equipment must be stored in a secure community building, which is why Alice has asked if we could possibly store them in the Colne in Bloom garage at Promet. Jonathan.
Are they going to pay the insurance if it gets nicked? If things get nicked, who's going to be covered there?
They have said that they will insure, obviously, we can't insure their property anyway because we don't own it. They would have to insure their items. However, what we need to think about is how many people have access to the garage. Obviously, we have other equipment in there, so we need to make sure that it's all secure. I would say that given that Alice already has access to there, if she's the one that gets the tools for the Millennium Green Trust, then you're not letting anyone else have access. So to me, that wouldn't be a major issue. And going from what she said, it is gardening equipment. It's trowels, forks, brooms, that kind of thing.
Howard?
In subject to it turning out to be just forks, etc. I can't remember the rest of it. And that they do their own insurance, and that Alice is the only key holder. I can't see there's a problem. Obviously, if they come back and say, we've got this ride-on mower or something, well, then that becomes a problem. But subject to it being small equipment, I propose that we say subject to it being a limited number of items and that they insure it. I can't see there's a problem.
Would you say it's subject to available space? So if they do come with a ride-on mower, we go.
Where is the shed?
It's at Promet Community Centre outside.
It's behind the big notice board that currently has no adverts on it.
All right.
Can I just make one other comment? I agree with the way forward that Howard's suggested. But potentially there is something else down there that could develop into a problem for us if we're not careful. There are various groups use the community centre. One group in particular is a toddler sort of group, and obviously it's better if young kids get as much fresh air as they can, and because there's a garden there, they quite often open the door on the side of the community centre and allow the kids to go and play there, observed obviously, and gate closed. And they have been concerned in the past of people sort of, not willy-nilly, but people going and opening the gate and tootling in there and taking things in and out of the shed. And to some of these parents that are down there with the kids, there are people that they don't recognise and they don't know. And there has been some concern. So if Alice is the one with the key, that's fine. But what we don't want is a lot of unknown people wandering in and out of there, and then they accidentally leave the gate open, and before you know where you are, the young kids are playing out on Primmett Bridge, and there's traffic going up and down, and quite a lot of it. Yes.
Could it be subject to accessing it, to consulting the council officers first? Because obviously we can tell them they might want to access it at whatever time, and we can go, well, actually there's a toddler, there's a group in there, you have to do it either this time or that time. So access in consult.
There's some way we can work together.
They need to check with us that they can go in there.
Yeah.
Bit of communication.
Yeah. Because the last thing we want is the gate left open, the kids out in the street, and there's a bus coming down in there, and we want to steer well clear of that. So, other than that, can we approve it with those few provisos?
Sorry, Chairman, one quick question. We store stuff in there, don't we? So why don't, are they going to be allocated to like a corner, a shelf or two or something, or can we also then possibly put a sticker on their stuff and brand it their stuff or something?
We have two areas of storage that have different access down there. One has majority of ours in, one is majority cone in blooms. So it's the cone in bloom, not the full council one that we're discussing. Does that make sense?
Okay. Who seconded it? I'll second it then, if no one did. Those in favour? Thank you. Item 10 we have done. Item 11, apart from needing buckets and wellies, I don't know whether Gina has much to update us on this.
This one's on me. After the last FES, I made you aware that we've had to halt work on the refurb, courtesy of a new leak that's sprung. Unfortunately, the weather has not been in my favour to be able to get up to that height to investigate what's causing the leak. Every week I've had a cherry picker on standby. It's just with the storms we've had, I'm not able to go up there. Had it planned for this week, obviously that's not possible. But over the weekend, we have sprung another new leak in a completely different room, in a completely different corner. So, however, they are all on the same side of the building. So when I go up to investigate one, I'll go up to investigate another. There's also, as I'm sure you've noticed, a couple of fan heaters in this room because one of the boilers has conked out again, I believe is the technical term. So I'll be getting someone out to look at it because it was really quite cold in the building. So we are still investigating the other options for replacing them. It's just been slightly delayed on getting back to me. But that's where we are, still working through it all, I think. Any questions?
Where are we with the actual progress on getting quotes and whatever for the roof itself?
Unfortunately, due to the weather, I can't take anyone up there to look at it. So it unfortunately is currently delayed until at least the wind drops. We can cope with the rain, but the wind up there is challenging at the moment. So until I can get the weather, I can't take it any further at the moment.
can we take the faulty boiler out of sequence? And as a makeshift measure run on 2 rather than 3? Because if that has a problem and it trips out, it could trip the other 2 out, couldn't it?
So in essence, that's what we're currently doing. We're only running on the 2, and because of the time of year, it's just not enough with our system at the moment. I'm hoping that it's just the trip switch that's gone. I believe I should have a plumber out Thursday to investigate, but unfortunately, we're a bit stuck at the moment. We are just wearing jumpers. That's the best thing we can advise.
On town hall maintenance, do we know where we are with chimes or lack of chimes?
Again, it's another one that I've been chasing. We've got obviously the clock going again, but we are currently running it on a battery and plug downstairs to keep those going. It just hasn't got the power to do the chimes. I did chase it last week. I will chase it again this week. We're missing them too.
That's it. So can we note that update on the town hall maintenance? Items for a future month's agenda. Is there anything? No. Date and time of next regular meeting. Don't disappear yet, Gina.
Oh.
Date and time of the next regular meeting. We've actually moved this by a week because it was on the 4th, which was the second day back after Christmas holidays, which meant because of bank holidays and all sorts of things over the Christmas and New Year period, it meant the agenda would have had to go out before Christmas. So it would have been basically out of date by the time we had the meeting. So we've moved the meeting by a week. So can I officially close this part of the meeting? And I don't know whether Gina heard me say it before, but so for Gina's benefit, there is a private item we're taking as a